Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and I've been playing PokeMMO for over 8,000 hours in over 10 years. And one of the main complaints I see from other players is that there's not enough endgame content and there's not enough things to go do once you beat the Elite Four. Now, I always push against that sentiment. I feel like there's tons of things to do with all the EV training, XP training, and shiny hunts. There's tons of goals to be set. However, if a large, massive player base is feeling this way, that feeling needs to be addressed and solved. Not everybody wants to make a big notepad document and make a list and set all of these goals. They want a little more direction. Now, over the years, I've seen tons of people suggest tons of things that would quote-unquote solve PokeMMO. And I would say that most of them are fine, but hard to work with the dev time. Some of them are downright awful and would destroy the economy. And then some of them are pretty amazing, but it's more of like a, does that actually fit the game? How do you implement it? And does it actually solve the problems we're looking to solve? I think it's safe to say that 99% of game suggestions never really make it off the ground and kind of get killed on sight. For good reason. It's really hard to suggest something that legitimately needs to be implemented and is worth the development time that would impact the game in a positive way enough. And I'm someone who's very skeptical of new game ideas. However, the more I've thought about this one, the more I've mulled over it, I just see more and more ways about how this one system could solve more and more problems within PokeMMO. I will say the main argument against what I'm about to suggest today is probably development time. This would probably be a pretty massive project and would have to take place after raids. I'm excited for raids to come to the game. They'll add a very good endgame go-to PVM activity, and this is something entirely different while still offering some really good, unique, diverse endgame challenges. Today, I'm going to be talking about PokeScrolls. Now, if you're familiar with old school RuneScape, you'll be familiar with clue scrolls, and clue scrolls are sort of like an item you get from killing mobs where you can go on a treasure hunt and a chest hunt to go sort of do random activities around the world to gain some sort of benefit or value. Now, people suggest mechanics from other games all the time, and it's not always a bad thing. It is good to look where other mechanics can just fit into a game and work out, but I'm usually very skeptical of it. Usually it doesn't fit the theme. Usually it doesn't make sense. It doesn't actually solve problems. It's just wanting one mechanic from a game you like in another game that you like. But once again, the more I've thought about clue scrolls in PokeMMO or PokeScrolls, the more I feel like it solves so many issues. It directs new players on what to do and where to go. It teaches people about the game. It encourages you to explore mechanics you've never explored and so much more. Now, as you can probably tell, this video is going to be quite the yapper, and I encourage you to grind PokeMMO or play PokeMMO on the side and watch this on a second monitor or in the background while we go through this. Or listen to this on your way to or home from work. It should be a pretty audio-based experience. I spent a lot of time going over this mechanic and trying to balance things, but I still need a lot of feedback and help from you guys, which is greatly encouraged. But let's just go ahead and start reading what I've written and what I've come up with so far for PokeScrolls. The summary. Critiquing a game with the power of hindsight is easy. Developing a game, especially an MMO, and trying to keep what's best for the player base in mind on top of balancing an economy, a shiny hunting system, PvP formats, and PVM challenges all at the same time is impossible to do perfectly. With that in mind, I appreciate any patience and understanding when overviewing this mechanic that I've been mulling over for many hours. This is PokeScrolls. Very similar to clue scrolls in old school RuneScape, there are tons of mechanics that people always want to bring over from other games to PokeMMO, and most of them aren't bad, but really, when it really comes down to it, is it really worth adding and does it really fit the theme? PokeScrolls is the only mechanic like this where the more I've thought about it, the more I feel as though it fits perfectly into PokeMMO and accomplishes so many things the game wants to do. Below are the benefits PokeScrolls could bring to the game, but as a quick summary, PokeScrolls are like treasure maps. You have a chance to get them from defeating wild Pokemon, and if you can complete the challenge and solve the puzzle, they offer you a reward. That reward will most likely be called a treasure ball, which is a loot chest of sorts. There will be 4 different difficulty of PokeScrolls containing different challenges and requiring different numbers of steps to complete them. This also means 4 different tiers of loot chests or treasure balls. Higher difficulty of scroll equals more difficult challenges, which equals better rewards. And finally, before I jump into it, remember, feedback is encouraged, and a collective mind will catch more things and offer more than just one person's perspective. But please do it kindly and constructively. Even if you have a good message, its meaning can be lost if you don't present it well. Thank you so much for your time and for your energy. Here are some of the benefits listed for PokeScrolls. They break the monotony of grinding. They encourage exploration and unlocking of all areas. They are good for beginner and expert players alike. They encourage you to explore different styles of play that you normally wouldn't. PokeScrolls could give reasons to veteran players to go back to earlier game spots they don't really adventure in nowadays. It also motivates new and intermediate players to unlock areas and make progress, and it should be a good mix of rewarding players for playing the game normally how they would usually, but also going out of their way to try something new. Like I mentioned earlier, the scrolls exist of a type of task, and you'll get a new task every time you complete a scroll. Here are some of the types of tasks, but there's others here that I haven't mentioned. In RuneScape, you would dig with a spade. I think replacing that with the item finder in PokeMMO could be really useful, and just add another use/reason to use the item finder, which I think is really, really relevant. When was the last time you used the item finder in PokeMMO? Talking to an NPC would be a way to complete a task, or using X hard to get items or Pokemon, achieving X goal or gaining X thing. We'll go over examples here very, very soon. Or a text-based trivia question where you type the answer similar to a CAPTCHA. Now we'll get more in depth over to rewards here in a split second, but there would be a shared drop table that all of the different types of clues would have access to, and they would have different rarities depending on the tier of clues. So if you're opening like an easy chest, for example, the chance of getting like a 7-day donor status would be super low, but it might be a bit higher at like 1 to 5% on a master tier scroll. We'll get to that here in a quick second, but the shared drop table could consist of hyper potions, PP maxes, PP ups, expert lures, Pokeballs, Dream Balls, Dust Balls, Net Balls, Premier Balls, maybe, revives, rare candies, max repels, breeding braces, riches charms, XP charms, shiny charms, 7-day donor status, 100 RP voucher, and various TMs. I really tried to pick items that encourage you to go do other things in games, if that's hopefully clear. Potions to go help you do PVM activity, PP maxes to go help you grind, expert lures to go help you single encounter shunt or make money, Pokeballs to go, use those to make Pokeyen, revives once again to help with like E4 reruns, rare candies to level your Pokemon, breeding braces to go breed for profit. There's supposed to be a lot of things that encourage you to go play the game more. 7-day donor status, XP charms, shiny charms. The question marks means that these are kind of more up for debate and a bit tougher. I understand that the devs don't want to put in free ways to get RP or more of those. That's kind of like a tough thing that eats into their profits, so that's a little more debatable, but I think that these could work really well for these rewards. Let's jump into probably the most important section, and this is the section that I've spent the most time on, but also the section that I need the most help with. What the actual tasks are is what makes PokeScrolls PokeScrolls. So let's go ahead and jump into it. First things first, let's talk about how you actually get PokeScrolls. In RuneScape, it would be defeating wild monsters like goblins. In PokeMMO, it would be defeating wild Pokemon. So I wrote down my thought process for balancing is having a 3% chance to get easy clue scrolls from defeating Pokemon level 15 to 30. Now, this is really important because just because the clue scroll tier is easy, it doesn't mean that veteran players won't grind easy clue scrolls. Easy clue scrolls will probably have specific vanities or specific items that every player is going to want to go for. So what ends up happening, and this happens in RuneScape, is like veteran and expert players actually go end up grinding beginner and easy clue scrolls or PokeScrolls, right? Because they want to get these specific vanities that are locked behind them, or specific things or specific achievements unlocked. This encourages veteran players to go do level 15 to 30 hordes of Pokemon, which I think is really interesting and encourages going back to that beginning of play. It would be 2 to 3 tasks to complete an easy clue scroll. There'd be a 3% chance of dropping, obviously, so 1 out of 33. Really, really, really easy. We'll see how much more difficult this gets. It's going to ramp up pretty quickly. Obviously, easy clue scrolls are supposed to be very easy. My aim is, I'm aiming for easy clue scrolls to be completable without having a single region done. It's supposed to be for that person who maybe doesn't even have 8 badges, or maybe just barely has 8 badges. It's supposed to be for the new player to stumble across their normal Pokemon adventure, see it and say, hey, what the heck is this? And then go explore more about the game because of it. Let's talk about how they would explore about the game. If you made one of the clue scrolls to catch X age group of Pokemon, so let's say one of the clue scrolls is go catch a flying age group Pokemon, the new player has to think to themselves, well, number one, what is that? Let me look that up. Number two, what Pokemon are in the flying age group? Number three, what flying age group Pokemon are around me? They have to do a lot of problem solving. They have to learn a lot about the game, and then also learn about their surroundings and what's happening in PokeMMO itself, and not just Pokemon. Catch a 1x31 Pokemon. A great way to teach new players about IVs. And I think teaching new players about IVs early is really, really, really important, because then they know to keep those IVs or keep track of those little green numbers they catch alongside their storyline. A good NPC talking one could be check in with mom, which is going to go talk to your mom. Now that could be more difficult depending on how far you are along in the story. Maybe you have to go get Fly to have better access to that. I think it's a really, really good challenge, but still in the realms of fairness for not having a single region done. Gaining 50 EVs, it makes you learn about EV training. It also encourages you to not only learn about EV training, but learn about the efficiency of EV training. If a new player figures out Sweet Scent plus Surf, or like a Sweet Scent Horde sort of method / strategy early on, then those 50 EVs will go by really, really quickly. But if they just sit there, you know, killing one Pokemon after one Pokemon, they're going to think this is really, really slow. And I think it really encourages you to, once again, problem solve and learn about the game. These are kind of just skill checks: cut a tree, smash a rock, push a boulder, just checking to see if you have access to those HMs. And then this one is one that I thought of, another like kind of puzzle one where it's a quote that says, "This shouldn't be on the moon," and then you need to use a tiny or big mushroom on the scroll. This could consume the mushroom or not. That's sort of up for discussion. And unfortunately, that's all I have for easy tasks. Once again, the best feedback, I think the best opinions and stuff that could be helped is number of tasks. I think you need like a ton of tasks to make these scrolls actually work. You probably need 20 tasks minimum per scroll, if not more. You're probably looking at wanting like 20 to 50. So if not more, tasks to keep things fresh. You don't want to be doing the same task over and over and over and over and over again. That would become a pain in the butt. You have to have enough tasks to keep it fresh. As many tasks as possible that are balanced for the clue scroll in question is going to be one of the most important things to do. An easy clue scroll should probably take around, I think, 1 hour or so. I have that written down here somewhere. Easy clue scrolls should take around 30 minutes max for an experienced player. That's important. Obviously, it might take longer for more beginner players, but that's okay. Let's jump over to medium PokeScroll tasks. Step 1, you would have a 1% chance of getting medium clue scrolls from Pokemon level 30 to 40. It's a 1 out of 100. So on average, that would be a couple inventories of Sweet Scents. Nothing super crazy, like 3 or 4 inventories of Sweet Scents on average to be able to get one. Once again, pretty easy to farm, but it does take a little bit more time. And medium clue scrolls would be 3 to 4 tasks to actually be able to complete them. The tasks could include catching X starter Pokemon. I like this a lot. It teaches early game routes and also makes you pop a lure. It makes you go catch whatever Pokemon, whatever regions you have access to, I think would be good. Or even making it so it auto selects ones you might not have access to. So now you have to actually go do those regions. I think clue scrolls are a really good way to encourage you to do something you wouldn't normally want to do. A really good example of this is in old school RuneScape. I absolutely hate questing. It's essentially like storyline runs in PokeMMO. I hate storyline runs. A lot of people love that, right? I hate questing in RuneScape. A lot of people love it. One of the only things that motivated me to actually do quests as a player, for whatever reason, was clue scrolls. Even though it wasn't really worth it financially, it just made me have that push and that interest of wanting to actually go be able to be stubborn enough to be able to complete this little treasure hunt. I think win one randoms PvP game is very fair, and we'll get into more PvP challenges being added onto this list in the future. I really like the idea of people being forced into PvP to be able to get these sorts of rewards. I think randoms is more than fair for a medium tier challenge, since you don't actually need a team to be able to participate in it. It just gives you the random Pokemon, and you can squeeze out one randoms win with enough RNG. I think it's super reasonable. It should take, maybe a couple tries if you're super new. Another quote or puzzle: check where you made him flee in defeat, and the solution to this would be to use the item finder in front of where Giovanni used to stand, or where Macho Brace is / was. Next up, catch a Ditto, teaching you about one of the most fundamental Pokemon in PokeMMO. Revive a Fossil, teaching you how to do that, obviously, and just showing you that you can consistently do that over and over again. A lot of new players don't realize that you can go buy fossils and like continuously do that process. They think it's like a one and done sort of thing. Gain 252 EVs. This teaches you and encourages you to actually learn about EV training due to the specific amount. Go talk to the man of science who shares his experience with you, and the solution to this puzzle would be to talk to Oak's aide, who gave you the XP share in whatever region you'd want to have that in, maybe Kanto or other regions. A quick trivia question: what year did PokeMMO release? And the answer would be you would just type on the clue scroll itself, 2012. Another one, enter your secret base. This would require Hoenn to be completed, plus encourages secret base exploration, plus encourages you to actually learn about like what does secret power do, how do you actually set up your secret base, etc., etc. It's one of those things where like if someone could get this clue scroll, have to go do this task, and then instead of actually finishing the clue scroll, they enter their secret base for the first time and they're like, oh, this is actually really interesting. You know what? I want to pimp out my secret base. I'm going to go, like, it's a sidetrack thing where it sort of distracts them and teaches them about these content that they wouldn't normally really explore. I'm a firm believer, I'm taking a break for a sec from actually just reading this out. I'm a firm believer that there is so much content in PokeMMO, but people aren't always pushed in the direction to actually go explore that content. So I feel like PokeScrolls really use existing content in the game and revives it and adds a new spin on it in a really, really interesting way. I'm so passionate about this project because I think it would be a lot to code the scrolls and how to register things, and I think it might be a bit complicated, honestly, but I think it's worth it. I think it actually uses so much of what the game already has, and the beauty is you can always add to it later on. So the more content you can release for the game itself, the more content you actually get for PokeScrolls, if that makes sense. Another one could be go for a spin on the Ferris wheel, which would require Unova to be unlocked up to the east of Nimbasa. Craft a rare candy. Not an actually difficult thing to do, but how many of you even know that there is a crafting system in PokeMMO? Probably not many of you, because it's time for everyone to learn about the crafting system in PokeMMO. Hatch an egg would be a pretty simple one, just making any sort of breed, and it also teaches you that breeding consumes Pokemon. That's super important and shows you the control you have over that. Catch a Zorua. It teaches about the illusion mechanic, plus shows you a shiny hunt, plus encourages you to own a reactive gas wheezing, which number one helps that market and that economy, and number two allows you to do other things in the game. Stealing an item from a wild Pokemon teaches you about thief and coveting moves, and also could teach you about potential money-making methods. And then to spawn or catch an OT Shedinja will teach you about that very unique Pokemon mechanic where you have to like level up a Nincada, have an open party space in your Pokemon, and then also have a Pokeball in your bag, and then it splits off into two Pokemon, Ninjask and Shedinja. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. You can probably hear it in my voice. Every time I think about this project more and more and more, I know there must be difficulties with coding. I know it can't be an easy project, but just the more I think about it, the more I really do so strongly feel that it's such what PokeMMO needs, in my personal opinion. But if you don't think so, feel free to disagree politely in the comments. Okay, continuing onward. Hard PokeScroll tasks. Okay, I'm putting a 0.1% chance, so a 1 out of 1,000 chance from defeating level 40 to 50 Pokemon. So we're taking quite the bump here. We can honestly even change this a little bit, but I want there to be a pretty big difficulty bump, and masters will actually get to that. This would probably take you about 2 hours on average to even get a hard scroll. That's really important. This is like where things get way more difficult. I put down here, I think the aimed time that I wanted things to get completed at. Actually, I only did it for easy and master. Excuse me. Once again, this is a very unfinished project, but that's okay. So I don't really know if I have a time estimate on what I want mediums and hards to take. I think it's a really important metric to set so we understand what kind of tasks are actually like viable for that scroll, if that makes sense. So 1 out of 1,000 chance to get one from defeating Pokemon level 40 to 50. That would be around 2 hours, a little less on average, doing ×5 hordes and killing them. 4 to 5 tasks to actually complete the clue scroll or the PokeScroll to get the chest. Some of those tasks could include winning 1 OU game, winning 1 UU game, winning 1 NU game, or winning one doubles game. It encourages the learning of all of the tiers and having a decent enough team built for each tier to at least be able to squeeze out one victory after a few games. And it puts more noobs on ladder for Spidget to lose -10 elo to. True and real. If you don't know, Spidget's a fellow Pokemon creator who has the what's called like the below 450 elo curse, where if he ever plays against a player who's like below 450, he always loses because he just can't predict them. Anyways, catch a 2x31 Pokemon, which should be achieved in around a 1.5 hours time on average, or you could wait for an Alpha Swarm spawn. So it works for players with different schedules and different hours to play. If you want to just go grind for that 2x31 catch and complete this clue scroll or PokeScroll as soon as possible, you can do so. Or if you're much busier, you can wait for a Discord ping or wait for a notification to where you can actually just go catch an Alpha and just totally complete that easy peasy. Catch a Burmy. This is kind of high for hard clue scroll, but Burmies aren't the easiest to catch. Usually you have to go do a honey tree route, so it teaches you about honey trees, honey runs, about Sinnoh, having Sinnoh complete enough to actually have access to that. Honey trees honestly aren't the cheapest thing. If you don't previously have your honey trees set up, you'll have to spread honey on the tree and wait an hour before you can even attempt this. I think honestly it makes more sense the more I think about it. Evolve an OT Combi. Similar situation, teaches you about honey trees, as well as you have to catch a female Combi, which I believe is a 12.5% chance to spawn in the wild, since male Combi can't evolve into Vespa Queen. All right. Gain 510 EVs. This is just EV training. One fully EV trained Pokemon, just gain. It's not that hard. I think it's good though. I think going with the EV route and continuing that is a really, really good thing. Once again, just continue to teach players about EVs, and encouraging you to have that extra benefit, like almost keeping Pokemon you want to EV train in your PC or whatever, and then getting that extra benefit. Like, okay, well now I have a clue scroll, so I guess I'll finally go EV train all those Pokemon that I've been sitting on for the past year or so, or months or whatever. This would be a trivia, or like this would be a puzzle one. The puzzle would say to stand upside down, and the solution would be to go to the distortion world and to stand upside down there or sideways. Harvest X berry could be a challenge. It encourages you to learn about berry farming. I like this a lot because most people just grow Leppas, but I like the idea of this being any type of berry and encouraging you to grow different types of berries. Another puzzle, stand where dragons reach their peak, and this would obviously just be to use the item finder at the top of Dragon Spiral Tower. Earn a ribbon on a Pokemon. I don't even know how the ribbon system works. There's a lot of fantastic people that do. I think, once again, forcing the learning of mechanics like this, I think is super good for the game. It's super important, even though it's one of those things, it can be a little frustrating, and it can be a little off-putting to be forced to learn a mechanic as a player. But you have two options when that happens. Number one, you could just drop the scroll. You could drop the scroll and try to get a different one. Usually you can only have one scroll at a time. That's also an important thing to note. Usually you can only have one scroll at a time, and the scrolls are untradeable. The scrolls are untradeable, and usually you can only have one of each scroll. So if you want to actually be able to grind and get another scroll, you have to complete that scroll then and now. So you can't just like grind XP forever and ever and ever, and then stock up like 10 scrolls and be like, okay, well now I can go do them. No. The point is you grind XP for a little. If you get a scroll, now you've got to go complete that essentially. I think it really gets you to like kind of break the monotony. Should have mentioned that sooner. Apologies. But I think stuff like this, I think it's good. Players don't always want to learn new things. Humans are stubborn. I myself am very stubborn. But it's also one of the biggest mistakes we make, right? One of my biggest mistakes was putting off learning the new PokeMMO breeding system, because I was that old head who was like, oh, I miss Bike MMO. Like, oh, this new breeding system sucks. Like, I don't want to consume my Pokemon. I'm attached to my Pokemon, yada, 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 all these things. And then as soon as I learned it, I was like, oh, this is actually genius. Shit. Why did I not learn this? Like, oh man. It's one of those things. Humans are very, very stubborn, most of us, right? Not all of us, but I think it's good to be given that push, that little push to encourage us to step out of our comfort zone and go learn something like this. As uncomfortable as it may be to the player, uncomfortability is good. There's actually a huge discussion to be had about this, where like not everything should be streamlined and easy. Overcoming uncomfortability and overcoming challenges in games is pretty much why most people play video games. It's one of the biggest drivers, and it's the reason why a lot of MMOs have died over the years, because they just continue to make them easier and easier and easier, and they remove that challenge, they remove that uncomfortability, and then it kind of just becomes boring. It becomes boring once you remove all of that uncomfortability. Anyways, it's hard for us to analyze that. Catching X unknown could be a different task, and this would depend, like, not unknown X like the letter, but like X being like unknown P, unknown L, unknown, you know, any unknown, and this would depend on this could be like this difficulty. This honestly could be a task that fits for the medium, hard, or master, depending on which unknowns are in that actual pool to be chosen. I try to talk to Fawn about that, who's the unknown expert, and he helped me a lot, but it's honestly still it's like shockingly a lot to understand all the unknown spawns and how they work. But anyways, that's what I have for hard scroll tasks. Once again, the more suggestions for tasks, the better. Please make them aimed at, and please make them try to be a similar difficulty to what's listed if possible. Master PokeScrolls. A 1 out of 3,000 chance to get them from defeating Pokemon level 50 plus. So you're gonna have to hoard XP train on, or EV train on Pokemon level 50 plus, which honestly isn't, like, it's less spots than you would realize. Like, specifically trying to go to kill Pokemon that are, or faint Pokemon that are 50 plus, like, it's more difficult than you would realize to actually go try to find that that kind of spot. Like, not every spot you can do that at. It'd be a 0.05% chance, a 1 out of 3,000, which if you're able to get like 500 or 600 encounters per hour doing that sort of grinding train, which is usually what you get, maybe even like 400. We'll do 500 as the average. It should take you around I did the math wrong, you know what I'm saying. It'd be 3,000 divided by 500, be around 6 hours. 6 hours on average just to obtain a master scroll, which I think is really, really interesting, and which is why the rewards have to be so good, and we'll talk about that. It'd be 5 to 6 tasks to complete a master PokeScroll, and this is the end game. Like, master PokeScrolls should require you to, oh yeah, you better have complete Pokedex, you better have all regions done, you better have a shiny Pokemon, a good PvP team. Like, you better be good at these things, or you're not going to be able to, like, 99.999% of beginner and intermediate players, if they get a master scroll randomly, they should probably have to drop it, and because they can't complete it, or just hold on to it until one day they can. And once again, that encourages you to kind of reach those goals and reach that sort of level. So let's talk about the tasks. The first one is a problem to solve. Check where you faced the ultimate champion, and the solution would be to item finder at red on the top of Mount Silver. Obviously, like, a pretty easy thing to actually go physically do, but it requires you to number one, have defeated red, most likely, or just have access to red. Trekking to the top of Mount Silver, having full Pokedex completion. Little checks like this for areas are really good for clue scrolls or PokeScrolls, because it makes you have to actually have that thing completed. A 3-game win streak in PvP. This would be tough for me, but I think it's good. I think it's good for the game. I think getting a 3-game win streak in PvP, this is probably one of the harder ones, honestly, on the Master PokeScroll, but I think it's good. Catch a 3 times 31 Pokemon. This is a 1 out of 1,800 chance or so it would take a long time to get naturally. Usually you can catch around, like, you can catch like 48 Dittos per hour, for example. So you would do 1,800 divided by 48. This is like a 37-hour grind normally. Extremely long. But you could also abuse alpha swarms, and what you would probably do is you would, like, catch Pokemon whenever possible, but you would also just use alpha swarms whenever possible, trying to get that. It should be like a 1 out of 6 with alpha swarms. So once again, it kind of goes back to, like, the rewarding both styles of play. This one, alpha swarms are a little OP for this, but I think it's still fair. Personally, equip or use a legendary in a fight, so it encourages you to actually gives a use for owning those legendaries. No longer will the days be of just, oh, you only go get the legendaries if you want them for collective purposes, because they're not actually that good to go hunt. They're not actually worth the Pokeyen. They're, you know, you don't need your OT. If you want one for PvP, just buy it. If you want one for PvM, you just buy it. Like, you only go hunt legendaries in Pokemon right now if you're a collector, which is kind of funny, or just for, like, casual fun, right? I think this adding a really cool use to Master Scrolls is interesting. Catch a Spirit Tomb, difficult Pokemon to find, difficult Pokemon to obtain. Turnback Cave sucks, rough catch rate. Probably kind of easy compared to the other ones, but it's annoying. Equip / use a shiny in a fight. It's one of those things where, like, if you don't have a shiny, obviously, like, the time to get this is pretty brutal, but you probably should have a shiny. You probably should have a shiny if you're doing Master Scrolls. Gain 2,500 EVs. This is fully EV training around 5 Pokemon. This is actually probably one of the easiest ones on here, even though it seems really drastic. Fully EV training 5 Pokemon nowadays takes like 30 minutes, comparatively back in the day when it was like tens of hours. This is probably one of the easier ones on here. This could get upped, honestly, or this could be changed in some way, but I like the keeping the EV theme, or we could just get rid of it. Catch a Riolu in the Safari Zone. I like this because obviously it teaches you about the Riolu spawn. It's funny because the Riolu spawn isn't even in the Pokedex in the game, so hopefully we could add that so players aren't super lost, because that feels a little brutal if they don't even know about that information. That information probably should be available in-game. But you're forced to wait for the rotation. For those who don't know, in the Johto Safari Zone, it's actually the best way to shiny hunt Riolu. In the Johto Safari Zone, every single in-game day, there is a different rotation where different rare Pokemon spawn. Things like Riolu, things like Shuckle, things like Beldum. These are Pokemon that spawn in the Johto Safari Zone. Now, their catch rates are very low. Most of them aren't great to shunt there. Shuckle's pretty good, and then Riolu is actually great when it's asleep. But I think, yeah, having this as a being forced to wait for the rotation, as well as having to actually go in and catch it. I think it's a good master challenge. Beat the Elite Four again. This is obviously an Elite Four rerun encouragement. It encourages you and teaches you to build a team for the Elite Four rerun, and yeah, have a team ready for that or build one for that. Once again, encouraging you. It encourages, which is great because it encourages you to breed Pokemon. It helps the economy. I think it encourages you to do so many things in the game that I think it works really, really well. Take down the Fiery Bird, which would be the Ho-Oh boss fight. Similar situation. Encourages you to learn the mechanic. Encourages you to own the Pokemon. Encourages you to breed up good Pokemon. Encourages you to play the game. EV train, XP train. Buy good Pokemon. Maybe you don't want to do all that. You can just buy good Pokemon off the GTL. It helps the economy. Breed a 6x31 Pokemon. This encourages the owning / collecting of them and teaches people like, hey, oh, it does feel pretty good to own a 6x31. Plus, it's good for the economy. The more people sinking good IV Pokemon out of the game, the better. That's one of the biggest things for us. This one's kind of funny. Own all evolutions. This is kind of too easy, but it's flavorful. People love evolutions, and maybe we could change this in some way. You could do like maybe make it not like just own all evolutions, but like actively acquire all evolutions. So every time you got this Master Clue Scroll or PokeScroll, you'd have to like go use a Thunderstone, a Waterstone, a Firestone, level a EV at night, level 1 in the morning. I think I'd like for EV or for Espeon, Umbreon, like I think that would be pretty interesting. I think that'd probably be more on pace. And then have a Pokemon reach level 100. This could be used by keeping, like prepping level 99 Pokemon just for this Master Scroll, which I think is really, really interesting. Or if you just are lazy and you have Pokemon in your boxes, level 50, level 80, you'd have to level them all up, or it encourages you to consume XP charms, consume XP candies, rare candies, etc. Play the game, encourages you to grind, encourages you to do things in the game. Now let's jump into the rewards. I'm going to be honest, the rewards are probably... the rewards are probably the least hashed out thing. We need a lot more tasks, I will say. Also need a lot more rewards. And the rewards, the problem is like the person who's actually coding this has to deal with the rewards a lot more. And I feel like it's better for them to sort of balance that and fix that. Now I think shooting for... What I did, as you can see, is I tried to shoot for like an average Pokeyen. I tried to think about a minimum Pokeyen that you could receive from the treasure chest, an average amount, and then a what's like if you got like that 1 out of 1,000 drop, what's like the best you could get. And I think this is, yeah, we'll go into it. It should take around 30 minutes max for experienced players to complete an easy clue scroll, and it should be making around 20. You shouldn't be able to get less than 20k Pokeyen for sure. Probably 100k average, and then 1 million Pokeyen if you get like a super rare drop. That's like the best possible situation, I feel like. And then I think these are cool. These would be cool vanities. We have like the Jester hat and some clown stuff, but I feel like specific vanities unique to each clue scroll would be really, really cool to me. So things, for example, like the clown shoes, clown nose, and clown hair. This is easy includes. Why don't we have these in PokeMMO? Like this would be amazing. I would love this. And then this is an important one. This is probably one of the biggest reasons why a lot of veteran players would go back and actually grind these, is getting these unique vanities. This is why I would go do this for completionist stuff as well. Getting the unique vanities. So it happens in RuneScape as well, where if you do X amount of scrolls, you just get a guaranteed reward. So for example, if you completed 300 easy clue or PokeScrolls, you would get the Pokeball cape, which would just be like a cape with a Pokeball on it. Pretty simple, but I think it's really cool. If you want to have all of them and be completionist, you got to go for the easies as well. These could also, once again, all of this could be subject to change. This is just what I've come up with. I think the rewards are the most flexible and could be the most changed in my opinion. The rewards might seem drastic. You see, you know, 1 million Pokeyen for 30 minutes of work. This is a very low chance. Like, I'm talking probably less than 1%. And I think 100K average is fair. You have to make... I don't want to hurt the economy. It is really, really important. But you have to make these good, guys. Like, if people are going to be encouraged to actually want to go do things, the rewards do have to be very good. And I'm like the most like, okay, let's take it slow. Let's be careful with the rewards. Like, I don't want to break this game. I don't want to break the economy. I'm the most like slow and patient person with this stuff. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that these rewards are going to have to be good for players to want to do them. I think 30 minutes for 100K is very fair. Most money making methods it might even be a little too safe. Most money making methods in Pokemon will make you around 150K at like the lowest. Things like payday pickup is just very consistent, 120, 150K an hour. I try to base things off of that and then off the higher end money making methods. Anyways, moving on. Medium scrolls, I don't really have much here. Wizcash Whiskers would be a cool vanity. Scyther Wings, I think, would be pretty interesting and could be medium tier. If you complete 250 medium scrolls, you get the Great Ball Tape. Similar situation. Once again, not really many rewards here. Aside from the share, well, I have the shared drop table, keep in mind, up here, which I think could be really relevant and could be different quantities based on, obviously, what treasure chest tier you're opening. Hard, I have Salamence Wings. People love wings. Salamence Wings would be very, very cool for hard mode, in my opinion. And if you completed 200 hard scrolls, you would get the Ultra Ball Cape. Having a bunch more, we need a bunch more rewards here, obviously, if it's not obvious. And then Master, I'm aiming for Masters to take around 3 hours at the minimum. Like, the best players should be completing Master Scrolls in around 3 hours. But ideally, these are scrolls that you keep for weeks on a time, and you just do passively and kind of slowly have it, you know, come about. And if you're holding for something for weeks on end, I think the average Pokeyen should be around 1 million, which makes sense. Like 3 hours, that's 300K an hour or a little more. That's like on pace with endgame activities. And then 300K minimum, so 100K per hour. That's not like the worst. If you're, you know, it's pretty high engagement activity to only be making that little Pokeyen, but that's okay. That's the worst case scenario, right? And then 50 mil. Like I think like turbo rare vanity drops, like 1% or less level drop, probably less, like 0.01% drops. I think it's cool for those to be massive, expensive hyper vanities. Now, obviously, these aren't going to be like, these are just what we're aiming for. These aren't set prices. Like, the devs don't control the economy of the market. They're not setting the price of these items. It's more so like a, hey, let's put it at a rarity to where we think that it might end up this value on the GTL. That's a hard thing to guesstimate, so obviously keep that in mind. We can always adjust and rebalance. The beauty of a live service game is you can adjust and rebalance, which is really, really important. It's better to have it be not as good on release and buff it versus it broken on release and people abuse it and then nerfed later on, right? I think a bow vanity, how have we not talked about this, guys? A bow vanity, I think people would love that for a Link cosplay, Legolas. Like, I don't know how we don't have a bow vanity in the game, honestly. I don't know if it's just too violent. I don't know. I think a bow vanity would do wonders. That just seems like amazing to me in PokeMMO. Bidoof backpack, a little brown backpack or something, or a backpack with like Bidoof sticking his head out, I think could be super cute. That would be a banger vanity. I would go for a Master Clue Scroll for that for sure. If you complete 100 Master Clue Scrolls, you would get a Master Ball cape with like this cloudy god level lighting and a floating animation. I did link the old school runes. This is just my obviously thoughts and theory. Feel free to adjust. The old school RuneScape max cape emoticon, and then with like a sort of like god-like, like cloudy, bright lights, sort of like Mercy coming down to res you in Overwatch type energy, right? All right, but I think that's mostly everything. Lastly, I do want to acknowledge that even though I spent a ton of time on this write-up, ideas are much easier to come up with compared to actually coding, rebalancing, and doing art/sprite work for everything mentioned here. So I have the luxury of just saying that all of this, all this write-up without having the burden of actually having to put in the legwork. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, and be empathetic with the devs about. And I hope if this idea, there's a 99.9% chance this idea is never actualized or never used in the game, which is very okay, obviously. Hopefully this can push something in the right direction to where in the future we have a non-PVM endgame activity that encourages us to do other things. Maybe something comparable, maybe something similar. I think pushing us in that right direction or achieving that goal is super, super important. A big thank you to everybody who helped me with in-game information, Team Mister, or just people who generally supported me during this project. People like Team Mister, people like specifically Fungus. I messaged about unknowns. My wife in 8 days at the time of recording, Casey/Eboja. You guys know her in Twitch chat and stream chat. And then that one guy in I don't know his name, so if it's you, let me know. Everybody's gonna say me in the comments, smiley face. There was someone in Twitch chat who talked about PokeScrolls and PokeMMO, and once again, I get so many people like, hey, what do you think about raids and PokeMMO, like from RuneScape or whatever or all these mechanics. Like there's just so many things that like could be from other games into PokeMMO, and I always say like, oh, it's fine, like I don't know, but like this is really the only one that the more I thought about it, I feel like the more it solves the problems that we have. I feel like the biggest problem in PokeMMO is player retention, and players get bored, and players don't have direction, and players quit, right? It's a shame to me. It's really, really sad that PokeMMO gets tons of new players every single day, and we can't keep them around. It's like wasted opportunity. It's really, really, really sad to me. But obviously, it's a very, very difficult thing to fix, and PokeMMO is a very grindy game. There's a sentiment where like it is going to allure a lot of people with the sentiment of Pokemon, and then realize, oh, it's an MMO. I'm a Pokemon player, not an MMO player. I actually don't like grinding. Oh, yikes! And then they leave, and that's fine. That'll always happen. That should be like most new players probably should leave the game and quit. It makes sense. It's not a game for everybody, but I want to minimize that as much as possible. I want to have as many people playing this beautiful game as possible. I want to have as many people having fun with PokeMMO as possible, and I want PokeMMO to do as best as possible because I love this game. I've been playing for a very long time. I think it's amazing. I think they've done a great job. I got AFK logged. That makes sense. And I hope this video was enjoyable. I hope you guys liked it. Hopefully it was fun. It was really interesting for me to step in the mind of a developer in a game balancer. It's so complicated. There are so many things to factor in, and I barely even did, 30% of a project, right? Thank you guys for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed it. I put a ton of work into this. Dislike if you didn't like this style of video. Subscribe to the channel for daily PokeMMO videos. Discord down below. Twitch down below if you want to watch streams. And if you want to go above and beyond and support my content, allow me to do big projects and sort of brainstorms like this. YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal/Venmo donations are really what keep me in business and allow me to make PokeMMO videos. I could not do this month in and month out without your guys' support. Thank you so much. Have a great day. I will see you guys later. Peace, a freaking Reno, and enjoy PokeMMO. Hey, thank you so very much for watching until the very end of the video. That means the world to me, and everyone on this list means even more to me for helping support the channel every single day. Thanks so much.